Hey there, this is Sheena Rowlands and today I'm sharing with you my latest layout for Hey Little Magpie. It's featuring this wonderful range by Vicki Boutin, which is Fernwood and made by American Crafts. So I had an idea in my head from the start. Once I'd seen all the ephemera, I had seen some gnomes and some mushrooms, and I knew that actually that's the photographs that I wanted to scrap. So because I'm using 3 photographs and the quality is not great, so that I've printed them small, I've decided I'm going to do a bit of a grid type layout to incorporate the 3 photographs. So I start to think about my positioning. I'm looking at maybe 6 different cards or bits of ephemera to use as the bases on the layout. So I'm having a look at the 3x4 cards there, see if there's any that would be perfect. Now at this stage I hadn't really got a colour scheme, but as I continue I notice that I'm picking out greens and pinks. I suppose with the mushrooms being red that probably makes sense, and that kind of is what inspires me to pick some of the other bits. So I've cut up this ticket page. I was never going to use it whole, so I've cut it up from the start, and that way I'll have a tendency to use more of it, because I don't know about you, but if I don't cut into something I tend to like to keep it whole. So once I've cut into a sheet of paper, then I tend to use the rest of it. So you can see me removing the gnomes from the one of the sticker sheets, and I've left them on with their backing on intact so that I can actually just move them around the layout. So I'm just picking some 6x8 papers as well in a similar colour range now that I might add to behind, because I'm thinking of having quite a few layers in each of these cards, or that's the theory anyway. So at the moment I'm just looking through all the ephemera, and there's loads with this range, some real nice choices. So I've just come back in, so I've got 6 bases there now. So in 2 columns down this 12x12, I'm just going to cut those bits off, and they look more card shaped. So yes, starting to really like how this is looking, and the colour scheme is definitely working. I love that vellum tag at the bottom, out here exploring, works perfectly with this photograph. So they were all taken on a dog walk during COVID when the local golf course was shut, but they actually allowed walkers and dogs on it, which is great. I'd never been there before, and because obviously there wasn't many people going, there was some massive mushrooms and toadstools, so I got some really good photographs, or a photograph, lots of different ones. I've never seen so many in one place before. So and if you can see the top photograph, I've got there my wellies, and I've got a foot either side of that toadstool. It was massive, and it was just nice to see it whole. It's not something I would have normally seen, so definitely needs to be mentioned in this layout. So there are a few, I think those tickets said Park Pass, so I think that's very appropriate. I'm going to journal on the back of them eventually about the exploits at the golf club when we go walking there. So I'll have them as 2 little tags, I think. I've also got a little bit of journaling going on in the middle right-hand card. I'm going to write on that eventually. Just a few details about where the photographs were actually taken. So I'm actually working on each of these cards in my mind, a bit like a mini layout. So I want each one to have a couple of layouts, maybe have the photo matted, have some either stickers or ephemera, or anything just to add some interest. I don't want any of them to be any more decorated than any of the others. I'd like them all to be pretty much the same. So we'll see how that goes, but that is actually the plan. Ironically, some of the cards came together much easier than others, but I always find that top right one, I keep messing with it because it's not really how I want it, but in the end I'm happy. But that bottom left one with the vellum tag I really love. And these mini puffy stickers, have you seen these from Vicki Boutin? They are fab, they really are. So I've made the layout on cardstock. I've not stuck the cards down. I decided I'm going to add a little bit of interest to the background cardstock. So I've come in with some the packaging technique and some ink oxides. You can now get these at Hey Little Magpie as well. And this is just a pale pink, just to give a little bit of interest to the background. So I'm not being very careful. I tend to mix it on the acetate on the side, so then I can just lift on to the packaging how much paint I actually need, how much ink, rather than actually, when you put the square straight onto the packaging, sometimes it stays square-like. So I'm just bringing in the cards on the white cardstock just to make sure that my packaging is going outside of them. Many a time I've done all this to a background to find when you put the layout back together, it's completely covered. So I do want it to be sticking out outside the cards. So whilst that's drying, I've come back to the cards and I'm just going to ink the edges. Some I've gone with a like a sagey green, and others I've come in with a pink, just to give them some definition so you can see the layers a little more. I'm not going to do them all on camera, but it was just to give you an idea, and I do think it really helps separate the different layers on each of the cards. Don't always do it, but when I do it when I remember, so I'm going to make sure that they're all put together once they're all inked. I will list the ink oxides that I've used in the words on YouTube, so if you want to use exactly the same colours, I'll have them listed for you there. So I've got these finger daubers that you can see on the left. I've bought them online. Generally I have one for each colour, and I find them really useful for applying ink to the edges of cardstock and even through a stencil. So the background cardstock's now dry, and I've come in with a Vicki Boutin stencil. Now please excuse the card on the left. Basically it's where I dab off excess ink, and rather than keep finding scraps, I use the same piece of cardstock until it's completely ruined, and then I get something else. Because the first time you put it onto the ink pad, it can be really quite bright, and I don't want that. I want a subtle colour coming through the stencil. So you may be thinking, why is she adding some of the stencil flowers in the centre? Well, there are going to be gaps between the cards when I do finally stick them back down. So the idea is I just wanted to make sure there was no empty spaces. So I've come back in with the same colour that I did the packaging technique with, just to soften the brighter pink. Obviously I'm mainly concentrating and doing the stenciling down the edges, but I am going to do a bit of it all over, and I really like the look. Rather than using the whole stencil, because there's leaves on it as well, I've just picked out some of the flower heads to add to the background. So now I'm just using a bit of the pink, and with a drop of water I'm flicking a few splats on it. They're only tiny, but it just breaks it up. So finally that cardstock is dried, and I can bring in the 6 cards, which are all stuck together, and I can now start to just get them exactly in the right place. Just check that the stenciling and the packaging technique is sticking out around the outsides, because obviously there's no point covering it all up. And then I stick these down. Really quite like the way this has now turned out. Just going to use some double-sided tape here, because I've used foam pads to stick the bits to the card, so I don't feel like I need really any more dimension. Now this is a really good way to use photographs that don't really need a layout of their own, or photographs that are a bit blurry. Sometimes old photographs where they're like grainy, so you've got a story to tell but they just don't look good if they were printed in a bigger size. Also, if you want to use lots of a range, I do feel that this has used lots of bits of ephemera, maybe bits you wouldn't normally use. Now they're all stuck down, and here's the final shots. That's the full image, and there's some close-ups too. I do hope you like this. Please give it a thumbs up, or maybe subscribe to my channel so you can watch further videos. Do check out the blog post on Hey Little Magpie too, and I'll be with you again soon. Bye for now.